Yes, welcome in everyone. Monday night, it's time to review the divisional round of action in the NFL. This is, of course, the full 10 Yards NFL podcast.
Hey, we're rolling. We drive all game long. Stay tuned, man. We got something special for y'all today.
You're listening to the full 10 Yards podcast.
To the 10, right to the 5, scooting in for the score. Touchdown.
Yeah!
Yes, here we are, just a three-man huddle again this week in a different three-man. We'll get on to that very shortly, Kieran. Hope you get well, my friend. Rest up. Caught the injury bug yet again in the playoffs. That's 2 weeks out of 3. Anyway, hope he gets rested up, ready for Super Bowl. But Lawrence is here as always. Lawrence, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not going to blame it on the sunshine. I'm not going to blame it on the moonlight. And I'm certainly not blaming it on the good times. I'm blaming it on the goddamn weather in Buffalo.
I think it was a bit more than the weather, mate. Certainly a bit more than the weather. We'll get onto that game in just a little bit. And obviously, you can see those of you watching along at the bottom of the screen from the Fantasy Podcast and obviously helping me, along with Tim and Adam, preview all the games during the playoffs. Dave, welcome in, mate. How are you this evening?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Glad to be here. And now that obviously fantasy season's over, it's great to come talk some football. Missing podcasting. So really glad that you've had me on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Always welcome. Always welcome. Always happy to talk ball. And let's get into it then, fellas. Let's start with the games chronologically. Same as we did last week. So, of course, obviously first up on Saturday evening was the Rams against the Packers. And just as we did last week, let's get you first and foremost some sights and sounds from the game.
Third down and goal for Green Bay. Rodgers going to throw it. Fire, and it's caught. Touchdown, Adams. Rodgers on the fake, looking, pumping. Rodgers running, and he's in. Getting everyone set. Looking left, throwing left. It is caught for the touchdown. Van Jefferson, who got all the reps with Cooper Kupp hurt in practice this week, comes through with a touchdown. His second of the year. Here's Aaron Jones right up the middle and more. Jones makes a cut into Rams territory. Still going near the 30. Jones has a chance. Out of bounds at the 15. Second and goal. Jones backing his way in. Touchdown, Green Bay. Akers once again in at quarterback. Remember, he used to play quarterback. This time going to run it again up the middle. Inside the 5. Still going. Akers is in. What a hard run by Cam Akers. And the Rams punch it in. Packers 176 yards on the ground. Jones has 98 of them. Play fake here, though. Rodgers going for it all, looking to break it open. He's got it! Lazard gonna go! Touchdown, Green Bay! On fourth down, 4-man rush. Goff in trouble already. Goff is sacked! Green Bay got home again, and Clark in the middle.
Yeah, that end one there was a very similar story throughout the day, wasn't it? Green Bay putting plenty of pressure on defensively. All the talk, obviously, ahead of this one, chaps, was it was the Rams' defense that was going to be the difference maker. Obviously, one of the big storylines heading into it was Aaron Donald. We heard throughout the week that he was good to go. We even heard Sean McVay in the pre-game calling him a human cyborg and that he was basically healing himself throughout the course of the week. I'm not being funny, though, fellas. If he was healthy, there's no way he was on a pitch count. He clearly wasn't 100%, and Lawrence made such a huge impact to that defense. It just didn't look the same without him there at all, did it?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the stat line at the end of it. One tackle. And I don't know what it is about the 2020 playoffs, but seeing kind of grown men in tears, that's kind of 2 weeks in a row now. So last week we had Big Ben weeping, and then we've got poor old Aaron Donald on the sidelines, shedding some tears at the end of it. And, however much we call him a cyborg, and for however, incredible season that he has had. You know, when you tear rib cartilage, you can't really come back from that in a week and be expected to be at full throttle. And I think, you know, we've got to give some huge credit to that Packers offensive line, led by Corey Linsley, who's I think he's all pro, isn't he, this year, Corey Linsley? And you know, incredible job by that offensive line, and to be servicing both Aaron Rodgers in terms of giving him the time, and also getting both backs, establishing that running game between both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. You know, I think if you're going to do damage, you need depth at the running back position. You need a really, and again, please don't say anything, but you need a solid number 2, and Jamal Williams is indeed a fantastic sort of support back. And you look elsewhere, and there kind of hasn't been that. So you know, that sort of double-headed running back monster, along with Aaron Rodgers, it's very, very hard to stop. But Aaron Donald, yeah, I mean, he gutted it out to really be on the field. I think if that would have been a regular season game, he probably would have had a week off, or even a couple of weeks to recover. But he tried his hardest. And the Rams, to be fair, the Rams hung in there. They hung in there for 3 quarters, and then they just kind of they ran out of steam at the end, and it was a little bit anticlimactic at the end. But yeah, so Aaron Donald's got a long time to heal, and the Packers will advance. And what blew my mind was one little statistic that I heard earlier on today, that for Aaron Rodgers, this will be the first time that he has hosted in Lambeau an NFC Championship game. So that I found truly remarkable as a stat. That, you know, he's been to Super Bowls, he's been to multiple Super Bowls, but he's never hosted in the snow, in the cold, in the kind of the whole romance of the kind of with the white stuff coming down. He's never hosted one of those. So I think that makes it for the neutral, which unfortunately we seem to be all of us today are all neutrals now. You know, we're looking forward to a big snow game next week, hopefully.
Yeah, like you say, surprising that he's never hosted one, but obviously the Packers really have underachieved. You know, with him at quarterback, you'd have expected more success than they've had, but certainly trending in the right direction this year. We mentioned Aaron Donald there, Dave, and obviously the impact that he has on the defense. The superstar that was still there, though, of course, was Jalen Ramsey. We previewed this on Thursday. We were looking forward to that matchup, Davante Adams against Ramsey. Adams' final stat line, 9 receptions off 10 targets, suggests that there was a clear winner within that battle. Obviously, the touchdown was as much as anything due to really good scheming and a good designed play to essentially eliminate Ramsey from it. But from a fancy perspective and someone who obviously likes watching the offensive players go to work, you must have been impressed with what you saw from Davante.
Yeah, and I said on Thursday's show that if there is one receiver, there's 3-4 receivers in the league maybe that could give Jalen Ramsey a really tough matchup. And if you combine that with, like you say, the offensive scheming that we saw there, and it makes Jalen Ramsey's life really difficult. And for the defense, they are reactive. They've got to play to what they see in front of them. To play offense, they know exactly what they're going to do. Davante Adams, of course, he's one of the best route runners in the league, and he knows exactly where he's going to plant his foot and exactly what direction he's going to cut in. And Jalen Ramsey is always one step behind, but he is one of the very best at what he does, which makes him so great. But when we had the scheming in that we saw at the goal line, and yeah, they should have passed the defender off, and that's what Jalen Ramsey said. As soon as they came to the sideline, you saw his frustration. You saw him saying that he should have been passed off. He should not have been mine. And of course, that's what the motion can do to you. But still, combine the two together, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers, and the scheming as well. And you've got a recipe for disaster. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers, he looked like he was having the time of his life out there. And there's just the one shot of his face that says it all. And the caption was, what must the safety be thinking when you see Aaron Rodgers look at you and smirk? And he just looks like he is having the best time of his life in such a great offense. And it's the second year in a row that Matt LaFleur's got them to the NFC Championship game there. And for me, I think they're going to go all the way. Lawrence, you mentioned that it's the first time that they've hosted a championship game there in Lambeau Field, and they've got such a home field advantage there. I know we'll talk about this with the Bills in a little bit, but even having a reduced capacity crowd there in Lambeau Field in that cold atmosphere, it's really, really intimidating, especially for a Californian team to go to, which obviously the Rams were. And now we've got the Buccaneers going there. They're a Florida-based team, and Tom Brady, of course, he's come from up north where the weather isn't perhaps as great, but nothing like Lambeau. So I think Tampa will struggle in the cold there next week. And Aaron Rodgers, I think he's en route to the Super Bowl and MVP for me.
Yeah, I certainly think he's cementing his case with regards to MVP, as you just said at the end there. He's been playing with a smile on his face all year, hasn't he? It seems a long time ago we were questioning the draft strategy. I think we can still question that draft strategy of taking Jordan Love. It obviously seems like a completely wasted pick. We knew at the time you were going to get 3 or 4 more decent years, in theory, out of Aaron Rodgers, and he seems to have just basically shoved 2 fingers up to everybody and said, I'm going to just prove to you that I am still the guy. Like you say, really tough place for anybody to go. We'll get onto the Buccaneers in a little bit, but certainly the Packers trending in the right direction. I suppose big question for this one, we'll get into it more in the off-season, but just very quickly, just get your views on it, fellas. There's going to be a lot of talk about Jared Goff over the next 6 or 7 months. Lawrence, what do you think the Rams do at quarterback? Do you think they persevere with him, or do you think they look to move on, whether it be it's going to be difficult to get that contract off the books, but, do they try and either sort of swing a trade or look to bring somebody in or potentially have a late round flyer in the draft?
No, I don't think so. I think, they really, really missed Cooper Kupp. So him kind of being out was a big blow, kind of that gutsy slot receiver, that gutsy kind of 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 type of guy. So that was a significant loss. I think the fact that Jared Goff came in not this game but a week ago and gutted out a win, and his stats were horrendous, like 9 of 19 or whatever he was. But the fact he came in for John Wolford, he wasn't expected to come in straight away or as early as he did in that game. He might have come in if Wolford had 3 bad quarters, but we never know. And I think he's endeared himself and earned a little bit of respect that maybe he didn't have coming into the season. I mean, we've all kind of recall that Super Bowl debacle where they could barely move the ball at all, and had the lowest output in a Super Bowl since I think the 70s. So, we know when it goes wrong badly. But I think Jared Goff has proved himself in these 2 playoff games that he's a tough quarterback. David, you're right. I mean, it's incredibly hard to be a West Coast team, go and try and get a win in Green Bay. I mean, the Packers finished 7-1 at home in the regular season, and 8-1 now, and they were all rested up as well. They had a bye, so they any niggles that they had, they've managed to kind of work those out. So I personally think Goff is going to stay. He was a former number 1 pick. He has taken his team to a Super Bowl. He has kind of shown that he has got some guts in the playoffs, and I think he's kind of done some good things. So yeah, he's not a 350-yard 4 touchdown kind of guy, but I still think that he's going to be with the Rams for a number of years to come.
Yeah, and Dave, your view?
Yeah, and they've got to help him out, and Cam Akers for me is going to be that guy. And I think Los Angeles this season have realised. Obviously, Sean McVay came out at the start of the season and said, "Yeah, we're going to have as many different running backs as possible in that backfield, and we're going to create confusion there." But slowly but surely, Cam Akers has become that guy in the backfield, and I think him going into next year and having the bulk of the carries he had, he had 19 touches on Saturday, 18 rushes, and I think if they can start to really factor him into the offense now, Goff can be that kind of guy that he was when Gurley was in the backfield. And I'm not saying that Akers is as good as Gurley was when he was there, but he certainly got the potential to be. And Goff, as soon as he's got that little bit of pressure taken off him, I think he's got a good enough supporting cast around him in Woods and Kupp. And Van Jefferson came to play in this one. He got the touchdown there, the rookie, somebody that I tipped to finish strong in the fantasy season, but it didn't quite happen. And now we're seeing him getting 7 targets, 6 receptions, and a touchdown in the playoffs. So I think there's just about enough of a supporting cast, and I think Goff's in a very similar position. And I don't want to bring it back to the Niners, but here we are. I think he's in a very same division. He's in a very similar position to the Niners and Garoppolo. We're asking questions, but he's just about doing enough of a job with a talented enough head coach / offensive coordinator that they can just about make it work with the supporting cast around them.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Fair dues. Can't disagree with anything that you've said there, boys. So the Packers advance and the Rams, unfortunately, are headed home. We've talked there about a running game to help a quarterback. Let's go to the game that basically features a team that, for some reason, just cannot run the ball, but they will not care one iota, because I'm, of course, talking about the Buffalo Bills. They got the job done on Saturday night against the Ravens, a team obviously famous for running the ball. But yeah, as with the other games, let's get you some sights and sounds from the game.
Sam Cook to put it down. They've been working together for years. Well, off the upright. And that kick. Wobble, and it hits the upright again. And this time, just good. Everybody can get set here. Substitution wise. Quick throw here to the outside. And in for the touchdown goes Stephon Diggs. Flanking Jackson. He stays in the block. Jackson fires, and that will be intercepted in the end zone by Johnson. Karen Johnson. And only Jackson can stop him now. Too late to the end zone. Touchdown.
People in Houston.
Look at this in the snap. Back to the 5, and Jackson just has to fire it away.
Now that could be a safety.
Well, let's see what they're going to say here. It could be a safety. It could be intentional grounding. Not outside the tackle box. Nobody even close to it. But there's a penalty flag.
Where was that ball thrown?
Meanwhile, you got Jackson, who's down on top of everything.
I've obviously got to say, fellas, that play there and that image was at the end of the third quarter, but obviously with that play essentially went any chance that the Ravens had in that game. Obviously the first half dominated by field goals, 3 missed field goals in total, 2 for Justin Tucker, who never misses field goals but managed to miss 2 in the same game, both hitting the post. Tyler Bass also pushed one wide right in difficult conditions for kicking. But the second half, obviously, the Bills got those 2 quick touchdowns, and essentially, that was pretty much going to be game over, and certainly it was confirmed game over with that play that we just ended that little highlights package there. I know, Lawrence, we've had many a backwards and forwards debate about Lamar Jackson. It gives me no pleasure whatsoever to see that be the way that the season comes to an end for him. I think we talked before we went live tonight. He was put in some very, very difficult positions. That wasn't the only bad snap of the evening. And he seemingly was just basically single-handedly at times keeping the Ravens in the game. But ultimately he does need some help and support. And unfortunately, although the defense played well, there's tons of questions surely for that Ravens offense going into the offseason.
Yeah, I think, with the part of this that hasn't really been talked about a lot is that offensive line and the pass protection. 4 sacks against that Ravens offensive line, and yeah, I mean, it was going to be awkward from when you saw the warm-ups and you just saw those flags kind of fluttering hard in the skies, and you're just kind of thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a slugfest, and it absolutely was. And that first drive that the Ravens had, they're looking confident. They're running the ball, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, they've got straight into that rhythm." And even those first 2 plays, those first 2 just big chunk plays from Gus Edwards, 2 kind of runs up the gut, and you're thinking, things are looking good here. And then doink, that horrible, echoey, tinny sound when the ball doinks off the upright, and you're like, "Oh dear, this is going to be awkward." And yeah, you're right, Shaun. Lamar Jackson performed some miracles to stop the Ravens going into complete self-destruct mode. One of the plays where he managed to pick up a fumbled snap and just managed to get a pass away, and then another where he managed to pick it up and run. He was having a terrible night. Kind of pretty much everyone was having a terrible night. And then that running game slowed down, and the real story behind this game was definitely not Josh Allen, who he just basically ticked along. It was that Bills defense, and that Bills defense nobody was really talking about. They're like, oh, they're smaller. That defensive line's going to get manhandled by that power running game. That if we look back to only a couple of weeks ago, the Ravens took. They got 400 yards rushing against the Bengals, and you're thinking, this is they're just going to plow through here. And no, it wasn't happening. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins held to under 50 yards, and Lamar Jackson was just bottled up. When we talk about game planning, that set of linebackers from the Buffalo Bills, in terms of how they contained Lamar, they knew he was going to run. It was inevitable that he was going to run the ball, and on designed run plays. But they just said, "Okay, bring it on. We're going to wait. We're not going to commit. We're not going to overcommit. We're going to put our players in those gaps, and we're going to wait for you. We're not going to do anything silly." And I think that the coaching, the job that Leslie Frazier did as the defensive coordinator was absolutely outstanding, and that was the tale of the tape. I mean, we get to that point when it's 10-3 and Lamar's driving, and you're thinking, right, this is I was seeing it in my head. I was seeing kind of 10 apiece, and you're thinking, yeah, Mark Andrews, the absolute reliable target, and then Teron Johnson, who again was coached to perfection. He knew exactly what he was doing. This was no accident that he stood in front of Mark Andrews to get that interception. What was just individual brilliance was getting that run back, not deciding not to kneel and just absolutely go for it. And once he hit the 30-40 yard line, he needed one angle, and as soon as he got that one angle, and was it Tre'Davious White that was his kind of running mate and running up the field with him, and got that block and kind of angled off Lamar Jackson, and said, good night. And then that was it. And they were never going to come back from Lamar getting hurt. And it was just such a shame to see not one but 2 NFL MVPs this week get concussed. And it's kind of left, for me, it's left a bit of a sour taste for the entire divisional weekend to see 2 absolute superstars seeing little kind of Warner Brothers birdies above their head. So yeah, absolute shame that's how Lamar Jackson's gone out. It's merciful that he has won a playoff game, so that narrative about he can't win a playoff game, at least that kind of King Kong's off his back. But then there's going to be a lot of questioning, a lot of what could have happened. But I think if we analyze that game in detail, Lamar Jackson did his best to stop that being a blowout. And that Ravens defense held the Bills offense to 10 points. So Josh Allen and crew have got a lot of stepping up to do. And that running game, I mean, it's not often that you win a game with 32 yards rushing, averaging 2 yards a carry. 2 yards a carry, and you win a playoff game. So, you know your luck's been in somewhat if that's the outcome. So, yeah, gutted for the Ravens, gutted for Lamar, but I think that he's still very, very young. He's only just turned 24. So still, as I put in my preview piece on the Full 10 website, I said two things of importance. One, whoever committed the most turnovers was going to lose the game. 1 turnover to nothing. So that came true. And the other thing that I said in the preview piece is this is not going to be the last time that these two teams meet in the playoffs.
No, you could well be right there, my friend. Obviously, fingers crossed that Lamar makes a speedy recovery. Like I said, I don't want to see players end the season in that way. And like I said, there'll be plenty of questions for them there. But let's look at the winners in a bit more detail, Dave, in terms of the Bills. Lawrence just mentioned the final sort of rushing numbers there. The probably the biggest stat was they'd only actually rushed the ball once by the time we got to the third quarter. A lot of those rushing attempts were actually Josh Allen kneel downs at the end of the game. 3 or 4 of them were actually kneel downs. It's a formula that isn't all of a sudden the way they're playing. Let's be honest, they've played like it throughout the year. Yes, they've lost Zach Moss, who was getting a few carries a game, but he was hardly a bell cow. He was hardly touching the ball 25, 30 times a game. It's all really about the wide receivers. The 2 best wide receivers on show were both in Bill shirts on Saturday evening. I am, of course, talking about Diggs and Smokey John Brown. And obviously, this is the formula that they're going to try, I would assume, to obviously carry them all the way. So just from the Bills' perspective, mate, what were your thoughts from what you saw on Saturday night?
Yeah, it's a really strange one. And Singletary, as soon as I saw that Moss was out, I thought, yeah, Singletary could be a really, really good DFS play here, and especially considering the weather conditions. But then I look back at his touches over the last few weeks, and this is the most touches that he's had for quite a while, like 7 carries. The Bills are really adverse to running the football, and even in these weather conditions, they've gone for this tactic. And yeah, Josh Allen, it wasn't a great passing completion percentage there. He only threw the 1 touchdown, but Stephon Diggs, his guy, got the job done again. And what a partnership that those two have had this season. And the respect that they've got for each other. Diggs has come there, and it's one of the best first-round picks that the Buffalo could have ever spent, because Diggs has come in there and he's been a true wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen this season. And the Bills just got the job done. I think the only thing that I would worry about is if you are so one-dimensional, then you always run that risk of being stuffed. And if a team can scheme for you to be able to take it away, you've got to be able to flip your game, but you've got to be able to change it up a little bit. Otherwise, teams will be really good defense. And of course, the Ravens are a decent defense, but they held the Bills to 17 points. That's a good showing from the Ravens defense, in my opinion. And
10,
obviously,
10 in fact.
Sorry, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, 11 if you want to be really facetious, but but yeah, of course, yeah. So that's what I mean. Like the Ravens defense did it here, and Buffalo, that their defense did step up, and that's the reason they've got it here. So for me, they've got to commit more to the run game. They've got to try harder there. And Josh Allen, of course, I can just see Kieran in the comments. Yeah, I'm not slandering him for a second. I love Josh Allen as much as the next person, but they've got to mix it up a little bit if they're going to go all the way in this one. Otherwise, a team will find them out, and if a team scores on their defense, then it's there. But you refer back to the Johnson TD. I was screaming at my TV saying, why have you brought that out of the end zone? I thought he was going to go down at about the 5 or 10 yard line, and I thought it was a really dumb play from him. But of course, I was proven wrong and took it all the way. So yeah, considering the weather conditions, it was a professional performance from the Bills. They got the job done, but I do worry about them if Diggs is going to get taken out of the game. because Beasley and Davis both held catchless in this one, which Cole Beasley, considering the season he's had, he's been having 9-10 receptions a game this year. He's been really, really solid play, but no receptions there. So take digs out of the game, and I'm worried about these Bills.
Yeah, they've certainly found a way, though, over the recent weeks. They've only obviously lost one, which was on that Hail Mary pass against the Cardinals, going back about, 10, 11 weeks. So, as hot as anybody in the league, certainly finding a way to get it done. And Josh Allen, when he's needed to, has found all the throws that he's needed to make. So the Bills march on. That's Saturday, fellas. Let's have a slight change of pace. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the coaching hires. We had the breaking news last week when we were on that Doug Pederson had been shown his marching orders, and we said we may well circle back to him. We never did. We were that excited talking about the games. So let's have a quick chat about coaches before we get into Sunday. And obviously there were 7 openings if we include the Eagles one that came available last Monday. Out of the 7, 4 we know are confirmed, and 5 is probably likely to be confirmed. So the absolute confirmed ones are Robert Saleh, obviously going from your 49ers, Dave, across to the Jets. We've had Brandon Staley confirmed today with the Chargers. Arthur Smith going to the Falcons. Urban Meyer going to the Jags. The one that is likely, but I don't think it's 100% confirmed, is Dan Campbell to the Lions. I think that's near enough done, but don't think I've seen official confirmation. And then the 2 remaining openings, obviously the Eagles, who came to the party late. Obviously that decision only made last week. And of course the Houston Texans, which, from the outside looking in, particularly with everything that's going on with Deshaun Watson at the minute, seems like a real poisoned chalice of an NFL coaching job. So just very briefly, fellas, and Dave, I'll come to you first, because obviously you're losing the defensive coordinator, someone who was very much in the conversation to hit the sort of head coaching role last year after a phenomenal year in his role with the 49ers. But Robert Saleh to the Jets, what's your view of that as a 49ers fan, and what are the Jets getting?
Phenomenal defensive coordinator, and obviously he took us all the way on that Super Bowl run last year, and it took Patrick Mahomes and his crew to knock us out. And this season as well, he's come back and he's done a terrific job. We've been very few teams have been hit as hard with injuries as the 49ers have done this season. And Salah, throughout all of that, he's lost like Ford and Bosa off his defensive line. Like if most players lost that caliber of player from their defensive line, then they'd be done for the season. But the 49ers defense this year has been really, really solid. And a lot of that does come from Robert Saleh. With the hiring for the Jets, I asked questions. It was obvious he was going to get a head coaching role this year, but do they need a defensive-minded head coach at this point in their stage? You've got such massive questions about the quarterback position right now, and I would have expected perhaps them to bring someone in, a quarterback whisperer, if you like, that is going to either help Darnold get to where he needs to be, or he is going to draft a new quarterback and start him up from scratch. So that's the only question mark that I've got over this hiring. But to be honest, the Salah defense the Jets defense is pretty talent barren. I know we've got Mosley there who's sat out this season on the COVID list. We've got Quinnen Williams, but Jamal Adams, as we know, has been traded. So it's a pretty talent barren defense, and they've got to build up from the bottom. But if there's anyone that's going to rescue the defense, it's going to be Robert Saleh. But I just ask big questions about the quarterback point of view there for the Jets. But really good to see Saleh. He's believed to be the first Muslim American head coach appointed, so really, really good to see that. But I'm sure we'll get on to more about the Rooney Rule and some of the hirings a little bit later on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Like you say, I'm pleased to see him get an opportunity. I think he's thoroughly deserving of one. A little bit surprised by the news today with Brandon Staley. I think, great record again, good defence that he's had to play with. I thought the Chargers may have gone with somebody with a bit more of an offensive mind. They've obviously just moved on from Anthony Lynn. Would have expected somebody potentially with a young quarterback to sort of pair, if you like, with Justin Herbert. But the Falcons have gone offensive with Arthur Smith. Lawrence, I think that one for me is a little bit of a surprise. Not that I think Arthur Smith's a bad hire. I think with all these hires, I always say the same thing. You've got to give it at least 12 months to really see where we are. You've only got to look back 12 months ago and I think Tim was quite happy that Mike McCarthy had been signed by the Cowboys. I'm sure if you asked him tonight, he would probably tell you otherwise. You've always got to give these things time to play out. But that one for me, a little bit of a surprise. Just in terms of the others, mate, is there anything that's caught your eye from either a good hire in perspective, in your opinion, or one that's gone a little bit left field?
The Urban Meyer experiment, whatever we want to call it, it's one of these things. Urban Meyer's known as this absolutely fantastic, aside from Nick Saban, kind of, one of the greatest college coaches of all time. Just looking up his record, 17 seasons in college for 4 different teams, never had a losing season in 17 years as a head coach, for Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and the Ohio State. And from that, he's been to 15 bowl games, won 12 bowl games. So this is some incredible stuff. And I think what I admired about Urban Meyer is he's got that Belichickian quality about him, in that he probably has got a very good sense of humor, but his public facing persona is one that kind of just doesn't crack. He's not going to sit there and have a giggle. He's no Steve Mariucci. He's all business, and he'll win a national championship, and then all he really cares about is next year's intake and what's going to be happening there. So he's landed in an absolutely just the dream position, the number 1 pick, huge amounts of salary cap, a young team with some talent that needs to be steered in the right direction. And this, I think it's fantastic. We know that there have, the Nick Saban experiment didn't work very well. I remember when Steve Spurrier came out of college and he was the Washington coach, and that ended in disaster. So we've got to see how this is going to translate. But I, for one, am fascinated by this. When we get through what's going on with COVID, we're going to be looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars coming over a couple of times to the UK a season, if not 3 times maybe, by the time we hit 2022, because I think it's unlikely anyone's coming over this year. Sorry to disappoint, but if we're looking into 2022, we're hopefully going to have at least 2 Jaguars home games, and we'll be seeing a lot more of Urban Meyer. So that to me is the headline move, and I think everyone from a neutral perspective is looking at, can Urban Meyer do what he did in college in the pros?
Yeah, total record 199 wins, 35 losses across his career. So phenomenal numbers. Obviously, if it does even remotely translate, that will go down as an excellent hire. You mentioned there, Dave, then just about the Rooney Rule. Obviously, for those new into it and not understanding what we mean by the Rooney Rule, obviously just got to at least give interviews to minority candidates. There's a lot of sort of anger across a number of people across the league that it seemingly always seems to be the way that people often get an interview just to tick the box for that rule to be met, but they don't actually ever seemingly do an awful lot of hiring of people that sort of would classify as a minority hire. And Ross has put in the comments, obviously probably the hot name, if you like, that seemingly keeps coming up every time there's a head coach in search. And you can totally understand it with how good this Chiefs offense has been for the last few years. Eric Bieniemy, I would absolutely love, from a neutral's perspective, to see what he could do with Deshaun Watson. Now, whether Deshaun Watson wants to stick around in Houston is a different debate, and probably something we can discuss on a future podcast. But just for the sake of it, let's assume that he's staying put. Obviously, the Eagles' quarterback position is not exactly rosy in the garden either. So obviously Eric Bieniemy, great offensive mind. Let's assume he is going to be in the running for one of those 2 positions. Do you think that potentially he's somebody that could be taking one of those two jobs, or is there anybody else that you think is pretty much going to be nailed on, or certainly well within the running for either of those two open vacancies?
McDaniels to the Eagles, that's a potential one there, and I think we're in a position now where they're very unattractive jobs because of the quarterback situations that we've got there, and it is going to take a head coach to go in to particularly Houston to say to Deshaun Watson, "Look, I'm here. I'm going to utilize your skill sets, and I'm going to give you enough reason to make you stay, because why would Deshaun Watson want to play in Texas if he's going to be treated the way that he has been so far?" And yeah, I really can't see a happy ending out of all of this unless a head coach can come in, an offensive-minded head coach, and say, like you say, Eric Bieniemy to come in and say, "Look, this is the way, Sean, stay, and we'll make something work together." So, yeah, it's two very unattractive ones. The ones that I've got there, the quarterback position right up in the air, and I wouldn't want to take either of them at this moment in time.
Yeah, certainly going to be a tough job for somebody, but there is only 32 of them about, so when we say they're unattractive, let's put that in context. They're still very, very attractive.
Yeah, of course, totally.
They'll still pay an awfully good salary as well, so I'm sure somebody will jump at the chance. But yeah, certainly, like you say, there's some work to be done in Houston in particular. Right, fellas, let's get back to the games we've done Saturday, so let's get into Sunday. And I am afraid to say that the dream is over, at least for this season. I am, of course, talking Browns at Chiefs. Let's get you some sights and sounds of the game.
Mahomes gonna run it in. Sidestep touchdown, Kansas City. 2nd and 19. There's Kelsey at the 10. Leaps and he flies in for the touchdown. Got a first down at the 26. This Chiefs defense was best in the league in the last 2 minutes of the first half defensively. Allowed the fewest points, but the Browns are trying to defy that. As they hit at the 5 to Higgins, he lost the football as he reached for the pylon, and they ruin a touchback as he fumbled through the end zone. Mayfield escapes the pressure, and he's intercepted! It's picked up by Matthew. Tyrann Mathieu spins out of bounds inside the 20. First and goal, Tony, from the 4. Mayfield in zone. Landry, it's a touchdown. Cleveland in the end zone for the first time. 3rd and foot. Running the option. Keeps it. Oh, that is close. I think they're going to mark him a little short.
Oh, no.
That's Mac Wilson.
He's down, Jim. Uh-oh. Oh, Jim.
Uh-oh. Yeah. He is absolutely dizzy. And now the Browns, though, they're trying to pull off this massive comeback on the road.
Take down a giant, number 2.
3rd and goal, and Hunt is home for the touchdown. Back to Kansas City. And he's in the end zone for the score. Henny dropped back and let it go. Browns are there, and it's intercepted in the end zone by Joseph.
Jump. There's no play. Just look at the body language.
Oh, there is a play. Henny rolling out, throws it. Hill! And the Chiefs are heading to the AFC Championship game. Only Andy Reid gets it shotgun on 4th and an inch. And throws the ball with his backup quarterback.
There's no way. He shocked everybody.
Famous last words from Tony Romo there. There's not going to be a play. Just look at that body language. But of course, fellas, that is the final few ticks of the game clock. There was obviously plenty that went on before it. Dave, let's come to you first on this one. We said, again, we've read all of these games wrong. We said this potentially was going to be a high scorer. It didn't really turn out that way, but it certainly had its fair share of drama and moments throughout, some excellent play. from both sides in this one. And ultimately, again, I'm obviously slightly biased, but for me, was probably the best game of the weekend in terms of the drama that it produced. So what was your thoughts watching this one Sunday evening?
Yeah, and like Lawrence said before with Lamar Jackson, it mars a game of football when you see obviously the highest paid sportsman in the world leave the game, and it's distressing seeing that the state that he was in when he did leave the field, because he didn't know where he was. He didn't know what day it was. He didn't know what was happening in that moment. He couldn't stand up. So obviously thoughts go out to Patrick Mahomes, a speedy recovery, because as a neutral, Sean, which obviously you're not in this one, but even you can appreciate the talent that is Patrick Mahomes and enjoy watching him, even if he is playing against your Cleveland Browns. So, of course, first and foremost, it's thoughts out to Patrick Mahomes and hoping for a speedy recovery on this one. But yeah, the Chiefs got the job done, and as they do so often, they go to unlikely places, and it was actually Darrell Williams that was the lead ball carrier in this one, and who predicted this one? So, of course, DFS, we heard Clyde Edwards-Helaire was questionable headed into this one. Everyone stacks the lineups with Le'Veon Bell coming into this playoff game, but yeah, it was actually Darrell Williams that was the lead rusher in this one for the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, out wide at the receiving position, it's the usual suspects. Tyreek Hill, 8 receptions, 110 yards. Travis Kelce, 8 receptions, 109 yards and a touchdown there. So it's the usual suspects, and such talent there. And that's the great thing about the Chiefs. They can go anywhere on this field to get the job done and ultimately win this game of football with any quarterback. And I've seen a couple of people start to question now, is Patrick Mahomes really as good as he says he is, with the poor performance that Chad Henne came and put in at the end? But I think maybe they're quite far-fetched shouts, but I've seen people already saying to put statues up of Henne, because nobody gave the Chiefs a chance to win this ball game when Cleveland were marching to go and win the game. Everyone said, no, Henne, he can't possibly win this game now. And that play that he made to Tyreek Hill, such a great play, such a clutch play for a guy who had never thrown a pass in the playoffs before, to be able to come in, make that kind of play under that kind of pressure in Arrowhead was a truly remarkable achievement. It is worth noting Patrick Mahomes in this one, he is the first quarterback to score a rushing touchdown in 3 consecutive games since Steve Young, which Patrick Mahomes, we know he's got that up the sleeve, but a nice little start. Obviously, that extends back to last year, to playoffs. But then on the Cleveland side of the ball, they tried to rush the ball. They couldn't really get it going, and they just looked a little bit, just didn't quite get it going on the offense there. And Tyrann Mathieu, he had a phenomenal game for the Chiefs there. His first pick in the NFL playoffs, just to really rub salt into the Browns' wounds. But they came close. Like Kieran saying in the comments, it's something really to be proud of. But the Chiefs, they've just got too much firepower, and I think they'll brush past the Bills next week and take it all the way to the Super Bowl. And hopefully we can see Rodgers versus Mahomes in what will be a truly phenomenal Super Bowl. But I guess we'll have to wait and see for that one.
Yeah, plenty of football to be played before we get anywhere close to that. And I'm sure that a couple of other quarterbacks might have a few things to say. But in terms of the game itself, Lawrence obviously put it into the highlight package. A real pivotal play in this one, just towards the end of the first half. That dreaded, horrible touchback rule, which comes into play yet again. Obviously, on a play that, look, there's going to be a fine for Sorensen in the post. That will mean absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. It was an awful, I can't even say it was a tackle. He didn't even threaten to try and throw an arm around Rashard Higgins. A really, bad tackle. Anybody watching this, trying to get into the game in terms of understanding technique, please don't tackle like that, for your own sake as well as that of your opponent. And just so frustrating that obviously replay, because of the fact that it's a turnover, and even when they can then blatantly see on replay what's gone wrong, they can't alter it. Potentially that could have been, 7 points for the Browns. It ended up giving the Chiefs the ball back, and obviously they added an extra 3 on before the half. So, a sort of 10-point swing there just on that one pivotal play. And obviously you fast forward to the end of the game, Browns lost this one by 5 points. So that play was absolutely huge, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah, Kevin Stefanski's come out and said that he has made sure that he coaches to get the first down. Don't go for the glory. So Rashard Higgins, yes, when you're kind of 1 yard away and you saw the likes of Taylor Heineke kind of go full stretch into the air and get his touchdown, and you kind of you can understand what Higgins was thinking when he caught that ball, and he's kind of thinking, right, we're going to get right back into this, and you can see he's already kind of seen the touchdown in his head. He's seen the glory. He's probably already starting to plan his touchdown celebration dance when he's made that grab and he's kind of moving, and then it was just he got clocked, absolutely clocked by Sorensen. And I don't think Sorensen was trying to target him. I think because of the way Higgins was coming low, Sorensen went low. There's only so much kind of mass between a safety and a receiver. There's not a lot of, it's not like the 80s when you had giant shoulder pads everywhere. They're playing with kind of smaller kind of pieces of uniform around them. So it was kind of inevitable there was going to be a bit of a nasty hit on that play. But yeah, I mean, it just turned that entire game around, that one play, and it was a momentum. Just it sucked the life out of the Browns, and it was a real shame. And hopefully that the rules committee have a look at kind of making these sorts of plays reviewable, because I think that's what's come out of this. That not the fact that the touchback rule, because even though that sucks, I think I personally understand it, and I haven't got a problem with it. But it was just the fact that play wasn't reviewable was bad. And I think if anyone who's been kind of listening, I've had a lot of love for Rashard Higgins going back a couple of seasons. I can see him, give him more ball and he will perform. But it's that's gonna haunt him for a long time.
No, it certainly will. Obviously, like I said, that was a pivotal play. I mean, to be fair, you said there it sucked the life out of the Browns. I think for me, and I've said this a few times today, overwhelming feeling for me after watching it yesterday, and even in the cold light of day today, is just one of absolute pride in terms of how far this team has actually come. They were driving and potentially going to score, and then had a sucker punch and had more points against them. Baker Mayfield obviously throws a pick on the first drive of the third quarter, and you just assume that that's it. The Chiefs are going to pull away, but now this Browns team is full of fight. It's full of heart. Kevin Stefanski's done an absolutely phenomenal job in his first season in charge. I'm really excited to see what he can actually do with a full and hopefully proper off-season, to obviously come in and deliver what he has done for the team that has not had a winning season for 13 years, to push the champs all the way on the road. And yes, obviously, there would have been a potential asterisk because of what happened to Patrick Mahomes and obviously, like I said, Lamar Jackson. Nobody wants to see that, but there's injuries all over the field at this stage of the year. Myles Garrett was playing injured. I mean, did anybody see Myles Garrett run down Mecole Hardman? I mean, come on, that's a defensive lineman. How on earth does he run down Mecole Hardman? But Garrett was playing hurt. We obviously lost Jedrick Wills on the first snap of the game. Injuries are part of it, and obviously the last thing you want is dirty hits to potentially make things worse. But I'm sure, like I say, there'll be a fine through the post for Sorensen. But that's by the by. I think the best team won on the day. I mean, ultimately, when Myles Garrett sacked Chad Henne just before the 2-minute warning, you're thinking to yourself, 3rd and 13. The Browns are going to get the ball back here and they're going to have a chance. And to allow Chad Henne to scramble for 12.5 yards, that was the ball game. Yes, there's a lot of balls in Andy Reid going for that call. I don't think he's going for that call if it's 4th and 7, fellas. I think he's punting that ball if it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3, let alone 4th and 7. So, that's where the game ultimately finally fell away, from the Browns. They also had a potential chance to go for it on 4th down, but they were deep in their own territory. I didn't disagree with the decision at the time, but a really good game. Obviously, fingers crossed that Patrick Mahomes is available next week. Obviously, like I say, seeing the way he obviously left the field, makes you wonder whether that's possible, although he did obviously run off to the locker room under his own power once he'd sort of come round to his senses a little bit on the sideline after the initial hit. So fingers crossed he's back, because that's, like I say, certainly that's what we want to see in terms of the games moving forward. We want to see Mahomes at quarterback for the Chiefs. And they move on. Like you say, Dave, as well, just shout out to Tyrann Mathieu. I thought he had a brilliant game defensively for the Chiefs. He was everywhere that he needed to be. Right, fellas, one final game of the weekend, and potentially, dare we say, one final game in a fabulous career. It's the Bucs and the Saints, as we have done. Let's get you some sights and sounds from the game.
Second and 9 now. This one's picked. Intercepted by the Bucs. It's Murphy bunting down the sideline. He is going to be marked out at the 3. From the 3, Brady throws. Pass caught. Evans touchdown. Well, now they've got Winston lined up wide to the outside in a direct snap to Kamara. Now Winston. Now Traquan Smith. Flag is down. Smith is into the end zone for a touchdown.
Ready. Bingo. Ready. Set.
End zone. Smith spinning and got it for the touchdown.
Ready. Set.
3rd down and 2. Quick throw. Cook makes the catch. 1st down. Ball's out and into the arms of Devin White. It's a takeaway by this defense. Good protection again. Pass caught. Touchdown, Fournette. No catches for Michael Thomas. You see the total yards in the game. 2nd and 8. Brees throws, and he's picked by Devin White. Another turnover, and White picks his way down the sideline. Brady's going to take it. Touchdown.
Well, they've got to get somebody down the middle or up the sideline.
Brees able to step into this one. This one's up for grabs and picked.
Yeah, real shame if that is indeed, as we probably expect, the last game that Drew Brees plays in a glorious career. Hasn't necessarily had the Super Bowl rings to match his regular season statistics. Obviously leads the league in a whole number of passing categories. But in terms of the game itself, it was really all about the turnovers, wasn't it? And the Buccaneers cashing in on those turnovers. Cagey opening to this one. Points were hard to come by. And at one stage, like I say, with actually 17 minutes there or thereabouts of game clock left, the Saints actually held a 7-point lead, and it was 17 unanswered points to end the game. And like I say, all basically off the back of turnovers. Dave, in terms of watching this one, we talked a lot again, didn't we, about the fact that the Bucs and this high-powered offense, but Brady under 200 yards passing. I don't think any of us probably would have thought that the Bucs would have been coming away with 30 points on the board with that had been the case. It was really more about this defence and its swarming nature, causing turnovers, not just through the air. Obviously, the fumble on Jared Cook as well, 4 turnovers in total for this Bucs defence.
Yeah, Devin White, take a bow, my friend. What a phenomenal performance from him yesterday. 11 tackles, including a tackle for a loss, a pass defense, and then, of course, the interception, and he recovered the fumble as well. What a phenomenal play. And you've got so many pieces on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that pair that with the offense, and they've got a real shot this year. And a boost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense as well is that Vita Vea has started practicing, or he's been cleared to practice from Wednesday, I believe. So there's a possibility that we see him now in the championship game as well, which is a real boost to that defense. So, yeah, of course, and great defense. And Tom Brady, people are still trying to put this guy down. So he was in New England. He was called the system quarterback. He was called the product of Belichick, this, that, and the other. He's left away, and people have said, he should never have left. He should have retired in New England. What's he done? What a stupid career move. And here he is now in the NFC Championship game. And people are saying, well, yeah, what do you expect with that defense? What do you expect with all those receiving options around him? This guy can't win. And look, I'm not the biggest Brady lover on this planet. I think his sportsmanship can be called into question sometimes, but you can't deny the fact that this guy, who is 43 years old, he's still got it. He's still playing some decent football, and that touchdown pass that he threw to Drew Brees' son in the back of the end zone was an absolute thing of beauty at the end of the game. So Tom Brady, we've got to give him some credit to be doing what he's doing at the age he is, and with a completely different team and a new system. We know that he's had his problems with Bruce Arians throughout this season. That they've had conflicts on how they want to play the game of football, but they've worked together to get the job done. And the New Orleans Saints had beaten them twice already this season, but they were able to go into the Superdome. Granted, it would have been a different story if that Superdome was full, but they got the job done. And I just want to give a shout out to my boy Leonard Fournette. Those that listen to the Fantasy Pod will know that I am truly on that Leonard Fournette hill. So to see him get as many carries as he did, and of course a receiving touchdown as well, I was really impressed to see. But on the New Orleans side of things, we were talking off air. They missed some pieces, like Lawrence was saying. Taysom Hill, it's very understated as to how big a role he does play in the offense, even when he's not playing full-time quarterback there. And they were just missing that little bit of a smart spark. And when you're having to rely on Traquan Smith to get your two receiving touchdowns, and Michael Thomas is held catchless in a game, then it's never going to look good for the New Orleans Saints. And for me, the way that Breeze ran out the tunnel and just that one last look back that he had at the end of that game, that speaks volumes for me. And I don't think we'll see him in the black and gold next year.
No, I think it's almost inevitable. I know he said he's going to take some time, but Lawrence, let's look at this Buccaneers side. Dave's obviously mentioned the ground game there. Leonard Fournette had 17 carries. Ronald Jones also had 13, so they got plenty done on the ground. I mean, to be fair, from a receiving point of view, not really an awful lot to shout home about. Was the one catch for Mike Evans, one catch for Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, out the big three, if you like, had the best day in terms of 4 receptions, but again, nothing stellar to say the least. The longest completion on the day was 29 yards, which went to Scotty Miller. But I suppose in terms of looking forwards for this Buccaneers team, and we've talked about this in the past with Green Bay, finding a way to not necessarily win when playing the way that everybody expects you to play in terms of big receiving numbers, big plays, being able to grind a game out when necessary and adopt your style. They're not going to want to see Aaron Rodgers on the field too much next week. They're going to want to keep him on the sideline, sitting in that cold weather. And if they can get the ball moving on the ground and get some short passing game going, things really looking good for this Bucs team, who seemingly are trending in the right direction, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, I think that that resurgence from Leonard Fournette, who was a bit of a castaway from the Jaguars. You were kind of like, oh dear, is he going to be one of these sad stories of someone who was drafted maybe a bit too early, and he should have been drafted a bit later, but because of where he was drafted so high, the expectations were also equally high. But he's a bit of a redemption story, and he's relatively fresh this season. He didn't get a ton of carries in the regular season because Ronald Jones absolutely stepped up for another. Ronald Jones just missed out on a 1,000-yard season, and to have those two running backs now fit and healthy going into an NFC Championship. And yes, the Saints defense did an incredible job stopping all of those Tampa weapons. Again, Marshawn Lattimore just absolutely, he haunts Mike Evans' nightmares, his dreams, everything. Yes, he managed a touchdown, but on 3 yards, and that was it for an entire game. And this is a 6'5" wide receiver who I think, what is it? He's the first wide receiver in NFL history to have 8 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, something like that, some sort of gaudy statistic. And then it just kind of it didn't happen. But it was funny because I for the second week in a row, I'm proving my age. I didn't quite last game 4 in terms of watching it all live. I fell asleep just as Leonard Fournette caught that touchdown to make it 20 apiece. And it was finally poised. And I must have felt satisfied kind of drifting off into sleep, knowing that it was a close game. And then that fourth quarter, it was ugly. And, you know, we were talking in the chat amongst us kind of full 10, the NFL crew. And I was saying Brady's fired up. And I was also saying that Drew Brees' arm, I just thought it was too weak. I couldn't see him sustaining a decent game anymore. I think it's one of those things where you've kind of gone over the cliff and past it, and it was going to have to be the defense, and it was going to have to be the running game that was going to keep them in and somehow drag them to an NFC Championship game. But when you've lost Latavius Murray, we talked earlier about the importance of having a really great kind of depth at running back. And Ty Montgomery is not the person that you want subbing when Alvin Kamara's having a little bit of a rest on the sideline. And then with Taysom Hill out, Taysom Hill's that kind of, you know, just thunder and guts kind of, you know, he's not a quarterback. He's kind of like Mike Allstott with the ability to throw the ball. And it was a shame that he didn't get an opportunity, because I think they hung in there. They held that kind of huge cohort of weapons that the Buccaneers have got, and I think it is, you know, they're going to be ready for Green Bay. Green Bay, yes, they've got a very good defense, but it is going to be closer than anyone thinks. I really think, and just that pure muscle memory of Tom Brady, it just, you know, it is incredibly hard to beat. When he gets kind of laser focused, there is no other person that is suited up in the NFL that has ever had that focus. I mean, Joe Montana, to me, was my kind of generation growing up, of that equivalent of that kind of ice in his veins. Nothing is ever going to get past him. But Joe Montana, to the 49ers credit, had weapons everywhere around him. You know, all pro defense, all pro receivers, fantastic offensive line, running backs coming out of his ears. So, you know, this is it's going to be fascinating. I cannot wait. And I've always loved an NFC Championship. Even if, you know, being sort of growing up a Washington fan, I've seen a few, but the NFC Championship to me is always, it's bigger and better than the Super Bowl. I just think whoever represents, I've just got this love for that, the NFC champion. And I kind of, when growing up watching the NFC win year after year after year, I know it's different now, very, very dramatically different, but can't wait for an NFC championship game.
Yeah, we haven't got long to wait now. We're down to the final 4. We've obviously got the NFC Championship game, as Lawrence was just mentioning there. Of course, easy Green Bay as Brady takes the Bucs up to the frozen tundra, and then we round it all off with the Bills going on the road for the first time during this playoff run. They, of course, go to Arrowhead to take on the defending champs, the Chiefs. Promises to be a fabulous weekend of championship action. Myself, Dave, Tim and Adam will be here on Thursday to get you all angles covered in terms of just some views on the game, some DFS selections, and all the latest betting lines in what promises to be, like I say, 2 keenly contested matchups. Fellas, it's been an absolute pleasure. Not necessarily the results that we wanted this weekend, Lawrence, but, you know, still some excellent action. You know, to be honest, from a neutral's point of view, I've got the AFC Championship game that really I think everybody wanted in terms of the Chiefs against the Bills. As much as from a selfish point of view, I'd have obviously loved the Browns to have got there. I think it's probably the right teams left in terms of where we are, and fingers crossed it produces the goods this weekend. No reason to suggest that it won't do just that. That's it from us on the podcast. Obviously, be sure to check out all the articles over the course of the week. Takeaway should be out at some point tomorrow. The written thoughts of the guys on the action that's gone down, and then obviously get your championship previews ahead of the action kicking off on Sunday. Dave, thanks ever so much for joining us, my friend. Look forward to speaking with you on Thursday.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can confirm that I'll be with you from my yacht on Thursday. So we're jetting out to the Caribbean tomorrow, and I'll be on my yacht ready for the show.
Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it indeed. And Lawrence, you'll be glad to know, mate, no games on Saturday next week, so your old age can rest up until Sunday evening, mate, and you can go back-to-back for 2 championship games.
That's it. In fact, I'm probably going to put in for a cheeky half day's leave on Monday morning, just because I can't miss championship game Sunday. I can't miss a play. So looking forward to it. It was just, and I'm hoping for some big performances. If we remember last season, remember what Raheem Mostert did to the Packers?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my God. I don't think Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones are going to combine for like 250 yards on the ground, but the Bucks are respecting the run game, and this is a team that they had the NFL record for the least amount of rushing attempts in a game earlier on this season. So they're realizing that the formula is you do have to run and pass. And kind of, you have to do both. And it was just interesting that there wasn't a single 100-yard rusher in the divisional rounds on Saturday and Sunday. So, teams have got to step up. Who is going to be that feature back that is going to get its team to the Super Bowl? Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Looking forward to it indeed. I think the playoffs have bubbled along quite nicely. They've been simmering, though. They haven't quite reached boiling point. Maybe this is the weekend that it finally explodes into action. We'll be here to cover it, as always. We'll be back next Monday to talk all things from the conference championships. And like I say, myself, Dave, Tim, and Adam will be here with you Thursday. So until then, as always, in the great words of Mr. Kevin Cadle, it's bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Full 10 Yards Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Full 10 Yards, or email the show full10yards@gmail.com.